I'm a Ukrainian immigrant who transitioned out of active duty Marine Corps service after about 8.5 years into full-time real estate investing and entrepreneurship. I built a few businesses, acquired multiple rental properties, and all of this helped me transition comfortably. Here's my story. My name is Mark-Jan Sitch. Stay tuned. So I feel like before I can get into my actual transition story, I need to give you a little bit of background. And I mentioned this before, hey, I'm an immigrant, but what does that really mean? Well, I'm technically a third generation immigrant, meaning that my grandparents were the ones that immigrated over here, and then my parents were second generation, and then I was third generation. But I kind of feel like I'm a first generation because my parents actually went back to the country of their heritage, back to the motherland. They went back to Ukraine. That's where my family's originally from. Why did my parents move back to Ukraine? Well, they moved there because my dad was a nuclear engineer and he wanted to write his dissertation on Chernobyl. And so we ended up living in the capital and also not too far from Chernobyl itself, about 32 miles away. And I'm fine. I don't have 2 or 3 heads. I'm a normal human being. The radiation isn't as bad as you think, as long as you're not right next to the plant. But I digress. Watch the HBO show if you're interested in learning more about Chernobyl. But anyway, so we lived in Ukraine till I was about 15 and a half. There was about 2 years in London, England, and about a year and a half in Sterling, Virginia when I was in kindergarten. But other than that, my entire childhood, till I was 15 and a half, I basically grew up in Ukraine. My first language was Ukrainian. I was actually born prior to the fall of the Soviet Union, for about 6 months prior to, in Western Ukraine, and my mom had to wait in line for milk for about 2 hours. And sometimes she'd get to the end of the line and the milk would run out. It was crazy times back then. Now, the reason why I'm giving you this background is because that helped me, I think, formulate my mindset and my wonder about the world and how to make more income, how to grow your wealth, how to change your family's trajectory and legacy, really. Because when I came back to the States, I repatriated, is what it's called, when I was 15 and a half, and I started 10th grade here, living with my grandparents. I was constantly in awe and in wonder as, just how industrious America is and innovative and how everything just seems bigger and everybody has more things. And I couldn't help but want to figure that out. Now that kind of went back into my subconscious and I stopped thinking about it as I was in the Naval Academy because I was focused on, the Naval Academy, service, college, all that kind of stuff. But then it started springing up again later. What caused me to resurrect my interest in income, businesses, entrepreneurship, and wealth generation was love. I fell in love with my now wife, who was in France at the time, learning to be a winemaker, and I was still in the States, obviously. I was going through flight school training, actually, right after the basic school for the Marine Corps. And it was very difficult because first of all, flight school doesn't give you a lot of time off. And second of all, I didn't have that much money to go and just visit her whenever I wanted. So I really only saw her at like the smallest intervals, maybe 2 or 3 months. Typically it was like 3 to 4 or 5 months that we wouldn't see each other. So it was a terrible long distance experience. And the thing is whenever I did go visit her, I really wanted to have a lot of fun. I wanted to show her a good time. I wanted to impress her. I wanted to, go awesome hotels, visit some awesome countries, and really make the most of our time. And so that's when I started thinking like, hey, how can I make more money so that I can, sustain this long distance dating, so that we can have a good time when we do get to see each other. And that's what got my gears turning and what started my entrepreneurial journey, really. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and 4 Hour Work Week, almost back to back, and those 2 books completely changed my life. I realized that I can actually focus on creating new streams of income instead of constantly trading my own time for money. And that blew my mind, and it started me diving deeper into real estate and business building altogether. I had a computer science and IT background, and so I figured, hey, why not start a website and document what I'm doing, be a crash test dummy for other military members as I'm trying to buy some real estate and change my life. So I had night watch when I was stationed in North Carolina, and I remember calling my dad after one of my rounds. I had some time off, just kind of, kicking back and at the duty desk. And I called my dad and I was like, hey, listen, I don't know what your retirement plan is, but have you thought about what's gonna happen, when you're in your 60s or later? Like, are you gonna make income after your teaching job? Is that gonna be a thing? Or are you just gonna slowly deplete your nest egg? I remember that conversation ended up being a series of conversations, and eventually I convinced my dad that his 529s that 2 of my siblings had, by the way, I'm the oldest of 7, that we should use that to buy real estate. And we should use that to create him and my mom and the rest of us a retirement for them and a legacy for us. So that conversation ended up turning into a series of calls, and eventually we arrived at a plan. And that was that my dad was gonna take 2 of his 529 accounts. They're kind of like IRAs for education. I'm the oldest of 7, so that's why we had those. And I convinced him that, hey, we should liquidate those. Take the tax hit, screw it. Let's get into real estate, something that's gonna appreciate over time and start creating you another stream of income so that you can retire instead of have to deplete your nest egg or your 529s or your whatever retirement accounts, whatever it is that he had set up. At around the same time, I did a pretty crazy thing too. I completely liquidated my own Roth IRA. I'm not gonna recommend anybody do this, but I was committed. I was like, hey, real estate is my thing. I have to go all in. I was young enough to where I knew I can make some big mistakes now, learn from them, and it'll make my trajectory of success way more positive and way more, well, successful ultimately, because learning from your mistakes, I think, is critical. Failing is critical. It is important, and so I committed to that. And so I purchased my first turnkey rental property, and I'll explain that later, with my Roth IRA proceeds, or what I pulled out of the account. And my parents and I partnered on a 56-unit apartment complex in Indiana on the 529s that they pulled out. From that point on, our lives completely changed. Now, was it an easy process? Was it passive all the time? Absolutely not. Actually, there were a lot of mistakes we continued to make. There was a lot of hard lessons we continued to learn. But the cool thing that happened that was completely unexpected to me, I mean, I probably could have foreseen this happening, but it was surreal when it did, was I stopped being worried about it. It was demystified. All of a sudden, the whole owning a piece of America that had a lot of debt on it stopped being so scary, because I saw month after month other people paying off the debt for me and my family. And then there being extra left over that went to me and my family, basically tax-free. And that was, I mean, it was a life-changing transformation, seeing that actually happen month after month after month. And then just recently finding out that the property we purchased, the 56 unit, appreciated $1.3 million over what we paid for it. We bought it for 2.6 and now it's worth 3.9, and we're about to sell it at the time of this recording. Now, since those first 2 properties, I managed to do some other cool things. I started a few businesses and I invested in more real estate. Everything from large apartment syndications with multiple investors, even a mobile home park, a personal care home, and then eventually a 40-bed memory care facility, and now looking to acquire more assisted living and memory care facilities. That was my transition plan. That was how I was able to step out comfortably. And one more thing I did specifically to be absolutely ready for a transition is I made sure I had a reserve account, a reserve savings account that I knew that if all hell broke loose or if I had a few bad months, because guess what, the paychecks were all on me now, me making money every single month was my responsibility. The government wasn't gonna give it to me every month on the 1st and the 15th, right? I have a reserve account, and when I have a low month, so to speak, I have a safety net, and I'm not worried about it. And if you're wondering about the businesses that I built outside of the military, well, the key business, the mothership, the main thing was active duty passive income, or as our team and members lovingly call it, ADPI. And this is where we teach other military members to do exactly what we're doing. How to invest in real estate. Whether you're planning on transitioning soon, or if you want to do a 20-year career or whatever, there's different ways to invest in real estate, varying in how passive or how involved you want it to be. And we decided that this community was how we were going to give back and generate more income for our family so we can buy more real estate. And it was kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's a really, really fun business to run. And we also even wrote a #1 best-selling book in 9 different categories on Amazon called Military House Hacking. And this is like the ultimate book, so that like, if you're watching this, or if you're like, how do I get into real estate? This is the book that talks about the foot in the door. How to house hack, how to buy primary residences with your VA loan in a very investment-minded way, and really get your journey started so that you can kind of take the baby steps and grow your confidence and keep going. And then of course, I mean, some of the other things we teach is also kind of like varsity level. So if you're really interested, absolutely check out activedutypassiveincome.com, and we've got an amazing community you have to be a part of. Hey, last little thing, I would love for you to join our mission and spread the word about financial freedom for military members. This is not a gimmick, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is a community, active duty passive income, where over 63,000 members at this given moment, when I'm recording this, are all helping each other invest in real estate, start businesses, create streams of income. So if you want to donate to our mission, become a part of it. Share this video, join our community, and be a part of the mission, and that's the best way to grow what we're doing. Thank you. See you later. Bye.